Hey, I'm Tina, guitar player from Berlin. Today I want to talk about bebop lines, and I want to give you 3 tools that you can use to make your lines more bebopic. But I also want to give you a tip how you can practice playing bebop lines in a very organic way, in a way that you're going to use the stuff that you sort of already know, because I think we're all guilty. We all think it's never enough. We need to have more lines and more licks. But I think we already have a lot of stuff in our subconscious if you have been listening to jazz, and I want to show you a way how you can access this knowledge. First of all, let's get into the tools. So basically, if we have our arpeggio, let's say we're having a C-7 arpeggio. We can use this arpeggio to outline the sound of the C-7 chord. If we are outlining the chord in the beginning of our journey in improvisation, it's a very good thing, because we have a very, very clear sound how this chord is sounding. And then we can add a chromatic approach. And in this case, we can add a double chromatic approach from below. And as an exercise, we can just like approach each of those notes of the arpeggio chromatically from below. So our first note would be like the C, and we approach it chromatically from below. The next note would be the E flat. So let's play 3 8 notes starting on the end of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Landing on a note of the arpeggio, I'm always landing on a chord tone, and so I'm safe. I'm outlining the chord with all this chromaticism going on. Always remember, as long as you resolve it to something that's inside of the chord, you can play a lot of stuff that's outside before you resolve it, right? I really like to practice improvisation using restrictions, because it forces me to apply new stuff. So my restriction is going to be playing an arpeggio, only arpeggios over those chords, and then I'm going to try to play a double chromatic approach from below or from above every now and then. So with the enclosure, that's basically a chromatic approach from above and below. There are lots of different variations, but you have a note from above and below circling in the note that you want to target. So if we would be playing a B flat major chord and the D, our third, a note that I like to play a lot because it makes the character of the chord so clear, I could chromatically approach it from above and from below, and then land on it. There's one type of enclosure that's very famous in bebop, that would be this one also. So chromatically from below, double chromatic from above, chromatic from below, and then, and I'm using the fingering 1, 4, 3, 1, 2. So the note that I'm targeting I'm playing with the second finger. And I think sometimes it's a really cool idea to stay with one fingering. The fretboard and the chords is confusing enough at times, right? So maybe just say I'm going to play my target tone with the middle finger and I'm going to use exactly this fingering. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm again playing some arpeggios, just making sure I'm playing a lot of chord tones, and then I'm going to circle around this one arpeggio note that I find at that moment. So the bebop scale is designed that your lines land on chord tones with all this chromaticism going on. You know, it's like disguising a little bit what you're doing. It's much cooler, it's not so obvious, but then still you want to land on the notes that make it clear where you are. And let's have a look at a B flat major scale. And I'm just adding in the G flat. With the dominant 7th scale, I'm adding in the major 7. So this would be Mixolydian. And then I'm adding in the major 7. And it's a funny thing, if you play it like this, you can start on any chord tone and then you will end on a chord tone after 8 notes. And it's an interesting vehicle to check out. I'm going to play the F7 bebop scale on the F7 of our 2-5 going to B flat, right? I'm going to ignore the C7 and I'm also going to play the scale, which I think is a great idea, over more octaves, right? Like I'm starting on the F. Then I'm going to resolve it to the B flat. Let's hear how that sounds. And I can start on any of those chord tones. I could also start on the 3, right? So basically, you could try to improvise like you always do, and then just like give yourself the task to fill in some chromatic enclosures or approach notes. And with the bebop scale, I would recommend to practice it in a very technical way, just like descending over the fretboard. Of course, you can ascend as well. And then at the end of the bebop scale, trying to play something, improvise something. So that's a great segue into my next subject, and that's how can we play bebop lines in an organic way, and how can we play using all the knowledge that we have already in our ears, sort of, because most of you, I guess, have been listening to a lot of jazz and to a lot of music, and it's all somehow stored in our subconscious. The question is, how can we exit it? So one exercise that I like to do is like play a line, and let's say the beginning of the line is always the same thing. So let's stay with this 2-5-1 and B flat, C minus 7, F7, B flat major. So I'm saying, okay, I will start in the same way on the C minus 7, like this. I'm going to play my favorite Enclosure. Right, I'm targeting the 3, very safe note. And then I'm playing an E flat major 7 arpeggio on the C minor, right? I'm going to try to find a line on the F7 and then I'm going to resolve it to the B flat. And what's so interesting is the F7 is our 5 chord. It's so extremely important to outline this chord that you can hear the tension. And the dominant 7th chord, the 5 chord, is so flexible. You can do so much stuff with it. Altered scale, halftone, whole tone scale, tritone substitution. It's a long list because it just lends itself to a lot of tension. And then you resolve it on the tonic with something like a triad. So what I'm basically going to do, I'm going to improvise, and then I'm sure I'll find, I'm finding a moment where I don't know where my line wants to go, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to take the time to hear where the line wanted to go. And there's like 3 steps how you can work on it. First of all, just play, take your time. It can take some time to access stuff that we want to play, we want to hear, but we just don't hear it yet. So I would recommend to do this exercise at least for 20 minutes. Then you can stop your jam track and just like try to find one line and then write it down. Write down your lines and practice them as etudes. And be sure that you transcribe a lot of stuff. You can practice licks from books. That's very good. But what you don't get from the books is the phrasing, the accents, sort of the meaning of the line, because it exists in a context of music. And to make things even more complex, all those things that we just discussed are very valuable to getting chromatic stuff into your ears, right? Because in the end, it's all about hearing. But many jazz musicians in bebop language, they play sort of superimpose other chord changes over a 2-5-1. So if you were having a 2-5-1 in C major, D minor 7, G7, C major, they might be thinking about an A flat minor 7, D flat 7, going to C major, and then all the stuff they are playing is related to those chords that they're either thinking or hearing ahead, right? So it's much more complex like this, but it's a very good way to start. But just want to encourage you to always listen and check out transcriptions, maybe get a teacher and discuss what's happening there. If you like this video, you might also like this video. I'm dissecting some Charlie Parker lines. They're very useful as well. And I see you around. Bye.